The National Union of Metalworkers of South Africa is criticising President Cyril Ramaphosa's restructuring plans on the power utility Eskom. Now, President Ramaphosa announced during SONA last night that Eskom would be split into three separate entities: generation, transmission and distribution, which would still fall under the company Eskom Holdings. Now, for more on this, we're joined in studio by NUMSA spokesperson Phakamile Hlubi Majola. Phakamile, thank you very much indeed for your time. Okay, you're rejecting the president's announcement. Why?
Good morning and thank you for having me. Yes, as NUMSA, we are rejecting the president's proposal. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, we issued a statement because already it seemed clear that this is where the state was heading, based on statements which had been issued by various ministers, that the ANC government's plans to rescue Eskom involved breaking it up into compartments: generation, transmission and Distribution, thank you. And we rejected those plans outright. We've done that because we know that once that breakup occurs, that is exactly the process that they will use to privatize Eskom. And privatization has shown us in the past that it results in massive job losses. It is not beneficial for the consumer because it results in higher prices.
Do you not think that this will actually ensure that costs are isolated and then, responsibility will be distributed to each entity?
No, that's just their PR jargon to cover up for privatization and job losses. That's actually what this is. The ANC is the one, through its leadership of more than 2 decades, that has actually ground the SOE to the point where it is on the brink of collapse. Now, instead of doing the things that they need to do to save Eskom, to deal with rampant looting and corruption, privatization is now a way for them to cover up for the crimes that they've committed against the state-owned entity and the public at large. Yeah. There are many options that they have available to them. They have deliberately chosen to ignore those options. We know, for example, that the IPP project is one of the biggest holes that's causing a massive negative impact on Eskom's balance sheet. The IPPs, which cost R2.20 per kilowatt hour, when Eskom can make the same electricity through coal at less than 50 cents, are the reason that Eskom finds itself in this situation. But of course, they're not going to cancel the IPP project. You have Patrice Motsepe, who's related to the president and the energy minister. So the ANC elite are going to benefit. They're going to enrich themselves while people, suffer in poverty and unemployment, because that's exactly what this is going to lead to. But beyond that, Eskom itself has said, even during the NUMSA hearings, that its biggest costs are because of the cost of coal. And when you analyze what's been happening at Eskom over the last 10 years or more, there has been, at least between 2008 and 2015, a year-on-year increase of 17% of the price of coal, which is just corruption as far as we're concerned. But they're not doing anything to deal with that. They instead have chosen the easy solution, which is for them not to take any accountability or responsibility for the actions that they've taken to destroy the SOE. They get to start over through privatization, and it's as if nothing has happened. This is why we're opposed to it.
Let's just put this conversation into context. I've got a bit of a clip that we've lined up of the president discussing what he thinks is the best option. Let's play it.
Our electricity company, Eskom, is in crisis, and the risks it poses to South Africa are great. It could severely damage our economic and social development ambitions. We need to take bold decisions and decisive action when it comes to Eskom. The consequences may be painful, but they will be even more devastating if we delay taking action. Now, in responding to this crisis, we are informed by the need to minimize any adverse economic cost to the consumer as well as to the taxpayer. As we address the challenges that face Eskom, we will ensure that there is meaningful consultation and dialogue with all the key stakeholders. We will lead a process with Labour, Eskom, and other stakeholders to work out the details of what we call a just transition and proper, credible, and sustainable plans that will address the needs of all those who may be affected. As we address the challenges that face Eskom, we also need to safeguard our national fiscal framework. We also need to achieve a positive impact on our sovereign credit rating and pay attention to the rights and the obligations of Eskom's funders. Eskom has come up with a 9-point turnaround plan which we support and want to see implemented. In line with this plan, Eskom will need to take urgent steps to significantly reduce its costs. It will need more revenue through an affordable tariff process. We need to take steps to reduce municipal non-payment and confront the culture of non-payment that exists in some communities. Now, this culture of non-payment has spread throughout the country, and we would like to call on all South Africans that it is imperative that all those who use electricity, over and above the free basic electricity that is provided, that they should pay for the electricity that they use.
The president speaking last night during the State of the Nation address, Phakamile, it all boils down to securing electricity, ensuring that we all have electricity. Don't you think it's imperative that measures are put in place to stabilize Eskom's finances?
Yes, absolutely. We've been saying...
And isn't this part of it?
Well, we've been very consistent that, yes, we need measures to be put in place to stabilize Eskom. In fact, we produced our own plan going into the wage talks, if you remember, way back last year, where we explained what are Eskom's holes, how can Eskom cover those holes in a sustainable way, in a long-term way, that at the end will result in Eskom continuing to be sustainable and in it being able to fulfill its statutory obligations as the provider of electricity. The problem here is that there is an obsession and a focus on the presentation that's been given from the side of government. And it is government that's been an active participant in the destruction of Eskom. The decisions that were taken were not in the interest of the broader community or at large of South Africa. It was in the interest of the ANC elite who looted and destroyed Eskom. As I mentioned to you just at the beginning of this conversation, why are we not talking about the high coal costs, which are in fact the reason that Eskom is in a hole? This has been repeated time and time again by the CFO of Eskom. Nothing was done about that. Nothing was done about the cost overruns at Medupi. So we're just going to gloss over the history of corruption and looting and move over to a new dispensation now that we've destroyed Eskom. This is not something that we're willing to accept. And I think it's also important that yourselves as members of the media, and let me be frank, because I find that I experience this every time when I have interviews, you are not hearing what Labour is saying because you have bought into the agenda of this government, which is to privatize Eskom. We are saying to you there are other options on the table, and those options must be explored. And this is why we are saying that if this is the path that this government intends to take, we are going to do everything in our power to mobilize the working class to reject it.
The reason why we have you here is to give us Labour's side as well and put forward your argument. Let's balance this out a bit and look at some of the strategies that government wants to put forward. I want to play a clip with regards to the so-called unbundling, splitting up of the entities. Let's play this clip and then we'll talk a bit about it.
Ensure the credibility of the turnaround plan and to avoid a similar fiscal crisis in a few years' time, Eskom will need to develop a new business model. This business model needs to take into account the root causes of its current crisis and the profound international and local changes in the relative costs and market penetration of energy sources especially the new technologies that are coming up. It needs to take into account the role that Eskom itself should play in generating energy from the new technologies. To bring credibility to the turnaround and to position South Africa's power sector for the future, we shall immediately embark on a process of establishing 3 separate entities: generation, transmission, and distribution under Eskom Holdings. This will ensure that we isolate costs and give responsibility to each appropriate entity. This will also enable Eskom to be able to raise funding for its various operations much easily from funders and the market. Of particular and immediate importance is the entity to manage an independent state-owned transmission grid combined with the systems operator and power planning, procurement and buying functions.
Okay, you obviously reject this proposal by the president, has mooted, but I want to dig a little deeper with regards to the root causes of Eskom and the crisis there. What's Labour saying with regards to that?
Well, let's go back to the clip and what he says. He talks about the formation of an independent, state-owned grid. What the hell is that? An independent, state-owned grid?
What's your understanding?
Analyze that. You're a journalist. Can it be both independent and state-owned at the same time? What? No, it cannot be. And this is the point that we're making. The devil is in the detail here. We're being told that there will be an Eskom Holdings and that Eskom will retain some character of state ownership.
Do you not think it's a collaborative effort?
No, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. It is a cover for privatization. We have seen this at Rotec Industries, for example. Rotec used to be part of Eskom, and then there was a process a couple of years ago where Rotec was taken out of Eskom and then privatized. And the impact of that was massive job cuts. Lots of our members lost jobs. And to make matters worse, there are conditions that they had fought many years to achieve, things like benefits and medical aid, all kinds of benefits that they'd fought for. They lost them in that process. Now, we've experienced this through Rotec, so we know that this is actually what they're saying. They're talking about privatization. Secondly, he also spoke about a just transition. Now, first of all, NUMSA was the one that brought up the issue of the just transition. That has been our demand ever since we embarked on the process when we were fighting against the IPP project. A just transition, according to the ILO, is a transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and it's a transition which is done in the best interest of the community and the working class at large. It is a process that is driven by the community and the working class. And the ILO has actually written a document that speaks about the just transition process, which falls into this Davos Pact that our government signed up to. The ANC government has just perverted the definition of just transition, because they talk about how they as government will lead a process to just transition. The definition of a just transition is a process that's led by the working class. We've not been consulted. The decision has already been made. We've now just been informed that Eskom is going to be broken up into pieces and privatization is going to take place, and this disastrous IPP project is going to continue. There's no socially owned renewable energy program. This renewable energy project will not benefit the working class, and all of these processes that they're implementing will result in the loss of 100,000 jobs in Mpumalanga, which the CSIR confirmed.
If this strategy goes ahead, what is NUMSA's plan of action?
We have been mobilizing the community on this issue. We began when we were presenting at NUMSA on Friday. We picketed together with members of the community. Our work intensifies from today onwards. We will mobilize the working class. This is not a battle that we are going to win in the boardrooms. We're going to have to win it on the streets. We've already got the NUM singing from the same hymn book on the issue of a just transition and rejecting IPPs and calling for the defense of Eskom. So this is what we have to do.
We appreciate you coming in and giving us Labour's point of view. Phakamile Hlubi Majola is the spokesperson for NUMSA.